You always hear about CASA with all their calls to action and all this other crap, you know. But, after reading this article, just solidified what I was saying in the current status in the United States District Court, um, health groups versus FDA, the video that I uploaded. That we need to stop coming at the FDA and we need to start working with the FDA. And this is really FDA's call to action. Yeah. San Francisco just had a flavor ban that got a lot of press coverage. A lot of people were aware of it. The Santa Clara County and the Oakland County, they got flavor bans before San Francisco. But for the most part, people didn't make a big deal out of it because San Francisco is like has an icon to itself, right? So that was like a big deal, especially considering Big Tobacco was pushing for it. And you got a lot of press coverage. You had Not Blowing Smoke, Stefan Didak speaking about it. So it made the headlines, so to speak. And look what happened there. We wound up with a flavor ban. New York they're going through a situation here. They just have passed it through committee, and now it has to go through the Assembly and the Senate in New York. And I believe New Jersey is following suit as well. And this is the state itself. Now, San Francisco was just that. It was just a city within California. Of course, California, about a year or two ago, passed some really rigorous laws against vaping or tobacco in general. But on the East Coast, you have now New York, New Jersey. So you have the West Coast, you have the East Coast, eventually going to have the South, the North, the Central, and it's going to squeeze into the middle. And one by one, either cities or states will either do two things. They will either have a flavor ban and or raise the age from 18 to 21. As long as they maintain the 18 years of age. If they want to raise it to the age of 42, they can. Of course, that probably would not get through their legislators, the legislatures. But 21 probably will. As long as they meet the legal limit, the federal legal limit of 18, they could do anything above that. So when you really look at the big picture, and then you look at Congress, Congress is not going to do a thing for us. In fact, the last video I showed you about Congress, they're actually encouraging the FDA to speed up the flavor ban, to have a flavor ban within 1 year, to bring into play some kind of age verification process within 1 year. Online and offline sales. And they are not going to do anything for us as far as Congress. We can fantasize all we like. It's just that. It's a fantasy. And then you have the court system. Nicopure Labs, Right to Be Smoke-Free Coalitions, Court of Appeals, eventually The ruling will come out either at the end of 2018 or beginning of 2019. And it will be against the vaping industry community. Some people see the writing on the wall. Unfortunately, most people do not. And then they have this extremely false idea. This is extreme fantasy of appealing it into the U.S. Supreme Court. Court of Appeals must take the case, must hear the case all the way through and decide. U.S. Supreme Court doesn't have to take cases. You could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to put the notice of appeal together, let alone the brief, to support your position to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court can just say within a second, we don't want to take the case. They don't have to take the case. So the only ones that really make any bit of headway, so to speak, is the lawyers or the law firm. I see the writing on the wall, and very few people do. I think possibly the only one that does is Do It Yourself or Die. He was speaking about it to a degree as far as the FDA in general on his last show. He was referencing San Francisco flavor ban. But he also doesn't see the writing completely on the wall either. And that is, eventually they will come out after do-it-yourself flavors, nicotine, things of that nature. They certainly have the power to regulate do-it-yourself, the market. And all they have to do, as far as nicotine itself, is the only time you can purchase nicotine is with a license. Now, of course, for them to do that, they would have to go through a notice of proposed rulemaking, which can take anywhere from 3 months or 90 days to 2 years. Will they do it? Probably they will eventually. But that will be the last resort that they go after. So far, thank goodness, the do-it-yourself market is quiet. They don't make a lot of ripples. They don't panic anyone. They don't draw a lot of attention to themselves. But the thing that Do-It-Yourself or Die and others like himself don't realize is, according to him anyway, to Wayne that is, that they don't have the power to come after do-it-yourself. 1 second here. Sorry about that. Sort of lost my train of thought there. So yes, they will come after do-it-yourself or die. Eventually even him, but especially with his one-shots, with the flavors. Even if it doesn't contain nicotine, they can regulate the flavors. But that's a long shot for the one-shots. But the nicotine, as far as do-it-yourself, they will come after that as well. That will be the last part of the equation. Thank goodness, like I said, the do-it-yourself market doesn't draw a lot of attention to itself. So that's good. But when that is the only thing left on the market, then the FDA will come after that as well as the Center for Tobacco Products. And all they have to do is those that want to have nicotine must have a license to buy it, and that's the end of that. And that would shrink that market up into zero. But like I said, they would have to do a notice of proposed rulemaking, and that can take anywhere from 90 days to up to 2 years or more. But that's way into the future. Right now, they're dealing with the consumer market in regards to e-liquids and hardware. So as far as the regulatory powers, they certainly have the power to do so. They could do the do-it-yourself market as well. Absolutely. And all they have to do is go after nicotine. Now, so you have the court system, and a lot of people hanging on to that. You know, they got the fund suit and this whole crap. And like I was saying, the only ones that are making out on that are the lawyers. The lawyers are not going to turn down any money you give them. I can guarantee that. In fact, that is the only guarantee. The only guarantee is that if you give money to a law firm, they will represent you until the court system tells them they cannot no longer, represent the client for whatever particular lawsuit it is. So let's take Nicopure Labs' Right to Be Smoke-Free Coalition. When they have their case denied on appeal, they will try the U.S. Supreme Court. By the time they put the appeal together, submitted to the U.S. Supreme Court, they would have made close to $1 million. U.S. Supreme Court won't hear the case, and then they can go back to Keller and Heckman or back to the Covington law firm and say, how about some other claims? Maybe some other claims we could file on. And whatever they come up with, then maybe they'll file more lawsuits against the FDA. I mean, there's like 6, 7 different lawsuits against the FDA that is pending. Currently, that is. The thing is you could file as many lawsuits you want against the FDA, but eventually, the vaping industry is going to have to face the facts that the court system will not help you. And once they realize that, either the consumers or the people in the actual industry realize that, then we can finally wake up to reality and work with the FDA. Now, I know a lot of people think, what does that mean? You mean to tell me you're not going to be buying any more mods after August 8, 2016? No. I'll continue to buy my RDAs and mods with the manufacturer finished product date after August 8, 2016. As long as FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb continues to break federal law. And in order for him to do what he's doing, he must break federal law. So therefore, I'm going to continue to buy all these products that have a manufacturer finished product date after August 8, 2016. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about, in order for us to survive as an industry in however which way, and therefore as a community, we must learn, figure out a way to work with the FDA and the CTP. That is the only way. Instead of fighting them, can't fight them with Congress, and you can't fight them in the court system. Now, on a personal note, if anyone knows me, as far as me and the federal government's concerned, they can go F themselves. But that's my own personal thing. I'm talking about as being a vapor. To remain a vapor the best we can, we need to learn how to work with the FDA. It's that simple. And with the CTP. And until we see that writing on the wall, for the most part, only maybe extremely a small percentage, if maybe not even that, maybe less than 1% sees that as a reality, we will continue to come at the FDA. And the more you come at the FDA wins across the board. And this is what you must realize, because they know as a fact that you're not going to win or find recourse in a court of law or with Congress. In fact, if anything happens with Congress, it will be against us from a federal level, state level, and a municipality local level. So I'm going to read, I prefaced all that. And this is the reason why, when I read this, I realized what we're up against. If you hear a lot of coughing in the back, that's my wife due to decades of cigarette smoking. I've been trying to get her onto vaping. I bought her vaping devices. Does not help. Every morning, she wakes up hacking her lungs out. She probably don't even know it, but she probably has in the very beginning stages of cancer. So the article reads, it's from the Spokesman Review, or Spokesman, I don't know. I guess that's how you pronounce that. This is June 3rd, 2018 at 5:47 p.m. Caption reads, step up soon on underage vaping, FDA chief tells tobacco companies. This is the FDA, the Food Drug Administration Commissioner, Scott Gottlieb. Doesn't look too happy there, does he? He appears before this particular organization here, which has a lot of, I read one of their, it was a 2017 meeting. I could not obtain the 2018 meeting. I did get the 2017 meeting. In fact, hold it. I might have had the 2018. Let me look at that. 1 second here. Yes, actually, it was the 2018 meeting that he showed up at. And he spoke about how he is basically putting the vaping industry on a very short leash within a very short period of time. And you had one person there representing Enjoy. And I was going to do a whole history of Enjoy. Enjoy was created in 2006, actually. And they've, I hate to tell you this, but Enjoy has been in bed with Big Pharma and Big Tobacco since about 2008. Eventually, I'll do a history on them. But Enjoy, if anyone knows the case, Cetera case, the SOTTERA case, they have worked hand in hand with the FDA for some time. It doesn't appear that way, but they have. I'll do a follow-up on that point in another video, but you'll be quite surprised to see that Enjoy was like the beginning of our downfall as a vaping industry and community. If you're going to put the whole dismal situation in anyone's lap, it actually begins with Enjoy. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but you'll be quite surprised to see that they have, they have definitely worked with the FDA, but more to our detriment rather than to help us. But that's for another video at another time. Just give you a little teaser on that. But here you have FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb not looking too well. He was in a position, put in a position by Senator Lori about a month or two ago to come out fighting against the vaping industry, which he certainly has, and he will continue to do so. Not only to save face, but also to save his own job, because they can remove him from office. Congress can remove him. It would take a little time for them to do that, but he certainly does not want to ruin his image. So we will comply with Congress. And President Donald John Trump can certainly fire him at any time if the Congress puts enough heat under Trump's big fat ass. Excuse my language. I don't feel too happy about Trump. He hasn't done tiddly squat, not only for the vaping industry, but as far as deregulation is concerned, but he hasn't really done much for America in general. Anyway, so on with this particular article. It's by Jennifer Kaplan and Anna Edney from Bloomberg. You know, Michael Bloomberg, he's definitely anti-vaping. And this is what it states. Tobacco companies need to step up efforts to stop kids from vaping, according to a warning from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration Commissioner Scott Gottlieb. Now, I know you're going to say to yourself, kids again, the youth again. Well, if you want to blame anyone, you have to blame Congress. Yes, once again, yes, I've been saying this. In the Tobacco Control Act of 2009, the official title is Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act of 2009. Now, the very first word of that official title is family. And this is the way in which the FDA continuously and will continuously make it into a youth issue. It's about the family, period. If you have a problem with that particular term, you need to go to Congress to change that title. For instance, you could have it changed to Adult Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act, or just leave it as Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act. That's the way to go about it. In fact, you could shorten the title from the unofficial title and make it an official title and just call it the Tobacco Control Act of 2009. You would also have to, of course, change a lot of the context as well, because the context, the preamble to the entire Tobacco Control Act of 2009 is all about the youth. So most, if not all, of the wordage would also have to change. So if you have anyone to blame about always having to hear about the kids or the youth, you need to go back to Congress. Now, of course, Congress is not going to do anything for us, so we are stuck with this whole thing about the youth and the kids. Goes on to state, the comments are the latest in a series of FDA efforts to crack down on companies that are producing e-cigarettes and selling them to minors. E-cigs, like the products made by Juul Labs Incorporated, were the newest craze in underage tobacco use as youth smoking rates of combustible cigarettes hover around historic lows. Tobacco companies shouldn't build businesses that rely on getting kids hooked on nicotine, Gottlieb said in prepared remarks at the American Society of Clinical Oncology's, I can't pronounce that, annual meeting in Chicago. Instead, companies need to help address the problem. And this is where I read the entire, there was a text there in PDF. I'll bring it up some other time. This is good. There you go. You had Enjoy spokesperson. You had the Pfizer spokesperson, Big Pharma. You had an R.J. Reynolds spokesperson, Big Tobacco. And you had the FDA Commissioner, Scott Gottlieb, also there in the meeting. And that particular verbatim transcript shows that pretty much they are all on the same wavelength. Absolutely. So it says, this is Gottlieb. This is Scott Gottlieb, the FDA commissioner. This is what he states. They better step up and step up soon to address these trends along with us. So far, I must say, I've mostly been disappointed by the tepid response from companies that know that a meaningful portion of their sales are being derived from kids, quote unquote. This is very important here. To address these trends along with us, understand? Not at us, but with us. Gottlieb certainly sees the writing on the wall. I'm sure he knows much more than I know or anyone knows that the court systems and Congress is not there to help the vaping industry community. And the only entity that can is the FDA, quote, slash CTP. So he's basically saying to you, either get your act together and work with us at the FDA, or we're going to sink you. We are going to dismantle. We are going to annihilate the entire vaping industry as we know it of today. Goes on to say, Gottlieb's campaign against youth vaping is part of an attempt to enact broader tobacco regulations. He proposed in July a two-pronged plan to reduce tobacco-related deaths in the U.S. The first half of the plan is to reduce the amount of nicotine in combustible cigarettes. The second half is to ease the regulatory pathway for products that are less harmful sources of nicotine. If enacted, the rules would comprise the most sweeping tobacco overhaul since 1964. Now, as far as this is a misspeak here, they're not going to enact anything, but they are going to pass these final rules. And these final rules of the federal agency of the FDA is a flavor ban. The more, I can guarantee you one thing only, the more we come at the FDA, the more likely we're going to have a flavor ban across the board. Period. The more we work with the FDA, we will not have a flavor ban across the board. This is the writing on the wall, especially Gottlieb's writing on the wall, that we must wake up to. Goes on to say, vaping may be a good alternative for smokers, but young people are picking up the habit too. The FDA said it sent warnings to 40 retailers for selling Juul products to kids in April. In May, the agency sent 13 letters to manufacturers of nicotine-containing liquids objecting to branding that resembles juice boxes, candy, and cookie packages. Gottlieb stated, the e-cig companies have a chance to do something about it. The window is open, but it won't be open for very long. Now that's very, very direct coming from Gottlieb. In other words, this whole advance notice of proposed rulemaking in regards to flavor ban will be up on June 19th, 2018. They will have a notice of proposed rulemaking, which will go on anywhere from 90 days to a couple years or more. Probably it'll be about a year. And that'll all be tied in with states and local municipalities slowly slowly encircling the vaping industry community. In other words, as time goes by and these states and these local governments feel safe that the FDA is going to also have a flavor ban, if not across the board, at least, even to a degree. Let's say out of the, I don't know how many flavors are on the market, say 20,000 flavors, and cut them in half, or cut whatever amount of flavors they have in all these e-liquids in half, the states and the local municipalities will feel more secure in passing these particular laws in regards to straight out flavor bans or across the board flavor bans. So we have to learn how to work with the FDA. The sooner we wake up to that reality, the sooner will be for the better. Like I said, they probably won't have across the board flavor ban. If we could work with the FDA, work out something that to eliminate probably 50% of the flavors on the market, or flavor combinations, or e-liquids in general off the market. And then some of the flavors may very well stay on the market. Like it says in the article, see, the second half is to ease the regulatory pathway for products that are less harmful sources of nicotine. In other words, what he's doing is, with all these draft guidances, now these draft guidances are not law. They are not law, like I showed you in that current status, the United States District Court Health Groups versus FDA video. They even say in the court documents that draft guidances are not law and that they are free to abandon those draft guidances anytime they like, meaning that they can change those quote-unquote current thinking of the FDA at any time. Now, he's attempting to make it less complicated to go through a PMTA or any of those types of pathways. A substantial equivalence exemption from substantial equivalence. But the thing is, no matter how he streamlines it, it's not really going to help. And not only that, you had 5 Pawns was on the Dimitri / Phil Brizzardo show. I think it was a Smokers episode. I can't remember which number. And the 5 Pawns CEO stated that they were in the process of actually getting their PMTA studies done. And then when the FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb, through a draft guidance, moved the date from August 8, 2018 to August 8, 2022, they stopped their PMTA studies. They withdrew their money from that process and then reinvested it back into their company. Now, the thing is, so they shouldn't have done that because they think that, well, we have 4 years, The sooner these companies start to do these studies that have these millions of dollars to do so, then the better off we will be as far as a PMTA getting through. But, of course, on the other hand, if they have a flavor ban, either across the board or even if they knock out 50%, or even if they only leave 10% of the flavored market on the market, well, I have something, but who knows what. That's anybody's guess. The Tobacco Control Act certainly gives them the power to eliminate all flavors, excuse me, including menthol, if the Secretary of the Health and Human Service Department deems it necessary, and therefore only leaving us tobacco. So if they knock all the flavors off the market, then what's the point of having a PMTA? Who's going to buy a product if your e-liquids are just tobacco? So, and then they may very well in the future as well, even let's say they leave, I don't know, 25% of the flavors on the market through the FDA. The states and the local municipalities may very well eliminate all the flavors from the market anyway. Of course, that'll take a period of time, but it's all coming together to a point here. And I'm going to say, if we go anything by what Congress did, Senator Durbin, I did a video of that. I'm going to say probably, and when the Nicopure Labs Right to Be Smoke-Free Coalition's appeal is denied on all claims, it won't be until sometime in 2019 when that comes down. I'm going to say probably around the summer of 2019, maybe a little bit before that, we will know exactly where we stand at with the flavor bans and whatever else the FDA has in store for us. We'll have a very good idea of what the marketplace looks like well before August 8th, 2022. And so we'll know exactly what we have to live with. So anyway, make a long story short here, I think the best thing we need to do, not only as a vaping industry, but as vapors of the community, is to work with the FDA. Now, I'm not saying, like I was said before, I mean, the manufacturer finished product date products after August 8, 2016 are still going to be pumped out and put into the U.S. markets by China. Don't get me wrong. Of course, they'll start to crack down on that, but eventually they're going to eliminate that. They're going to put import bans on all these companies. But nevertheless, if you look at this line here, which is a very true line, he's trying to make it so we can have these products on the market, even though it's against federal law. Gottlieb is trying to leave these less harmful sources of nicotine on the market. But if we keep fighting the FDA, we keep coming at the FDA, then the FDA has no other alternative than to come at us, to come at the vaping industry, to come at the vaping community and make it very, very bad for us. So I say, why don't we start working with the FDA? So therefore, the FDA does not come at the vaping industry or community in such a way that it literally eliminates everything we know as vapors that is on the market, that it does not eliminate everything that we cherish and love about vaping. In fact, the whole, to me, it's not, it's definitely flavors, true, but I also enjoy my mods, I enjoy my RDAs, I enjoy my building. There's so many different tanks out there that you can get into, RDTAs, RTAs, RBAs, GTAs, whatever, sub-ohm tanks, non-sub-ohm tanks. Even two mech mods and fully mechanical box mods. There's so much variety that will be eliminated from the picture if we continue to come at the FDA. And on that point, you guys have a good one. Bye-bye.